I've almost finished putting my rifle back together. These stupid German guns.
Which rifle is that?
This is a Portuguese G3. It's a beautiful, beautiful weapon.
How long have you had that one?
I picked it up yesterday.
Oh, okay. That was the one you were talking about the other day.
Yep.
Do you you have a CC, right? A CC license?
Yeah, I carry a SIG 320.
Okay, I didn't know if you're one of the folks that doesn't have a CC and has to go through the whole normal way of buying stuff. I didn't know what that turnaround time is nowadays. Oh, no, rifles. Yeah, rifles are different. My bad. I was thinking about pistols. My bad.
Is there a waiting period?
I don't. Well, like if you're getting a pistol, before I got my CC, a pistol, like you had to fill out some paperwork. Basically, I don't remember what it's called now because it's been several years ago.
What was that, the purchase permit thing?
Yeah. So you have to get your purchase permit, and I have to go through Guilford County, and Guilford County takes forever in a day.
That was actually repealed like 2 years ago. So
okay.
Yeah, so they've made it now the same process of buying a long gun. So if you don't have your concealed carry, you do have to go through like a sort of on-the-spot background check, but you don't have to get the purchase permit.
Oh, okay.
Now, it's still good to get your concealed carry because you still can't carry without it unless you're open carrying. And it does make it quicker if you're buying it. You know, you don't have to deal with the hassle of waiting for the background check to clear, but...
Yeah,
it's not the same as it used to be because I bought a pistol. I mean, it was less than a year before they changed it. And yeah, it was such an onerous process going to the county seat to get like your permission slip. You can only buy one with it. Like if you wanted to buy like 3 guns, you would have to get 3 different permits.
Yeah, and depending on where you live, it used to take. You know, they have different processing times and stuff too.
Yeah, it took me about 2 full weeks, I think, to make that work. When I did it,
Mine was a little bit longer than that, but it wasn't quite a month, but it was longer than 2 weeks. But yeah, that was part of what enticed me to get my CC.
How long did CC take?
I actually got mine during COVID, and it took months. So it was. I don't recall fully because I mean that's been around 5 years ago now, but it took
the processing time.
Yeah,
man, that's crazy.
I know. Flies by.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Shoot, I remember we got married, like me and my wife, not too long before COVID, and like she ended up not getting. I mean, it's changed now, but she didn't get her name changed and like legally until after COVID, because it was already not a great process, but during COVID they made it so bad where it was like if you wanted to legally change your name, you had to mail in like not a copy, you had to mail in your actual driver's license like through the mail to the office, and the turnaround time was 3 months. Oh yeah. So also my wife just reminded me, it wasn't just the license, it was also your original Social Security card. Again, not a copy, your original Social Security card. All in the mail, gone for 3 months. I mean, so like there's no way you would ever actually do that. You just had to wait.
Yeah, that's just that's peak government right there, really.
Yeah, like I've never heard of an agency that didn't let you get like a notarized copy sent for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I have that to Well, not that exact system, but I've got all that to look forward to. I think I don't know if she's entirely certain on it, but we set March 14th as the wedding date.
Oh, hey, nice.
So looking forward to that.
That's coming up.
You know, not this March, but next March. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh wow, that's short.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, are y'all just bypassing a ceremony? Is like,
Yeah, I should have clarified that.
Man, that was another COVID thing. There were so many people who got courthouse married during COVID,
Yeah.
saying they were going to do like a reception later, and they really never did.
Yeah. Honestly, man, her family wants to do all this stuff and whatnot. I wouldn't be opposed to getting a preacher together and having like 10 people in there for a ceremony and then going down to the courthouse and getting the paperwork filled out. But I understand the wanting to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading somewhere once. I think it was in Albion Seed. It was talking about the marriage traditions of the Puritans up north, and literally for their weddings, they would invite the local magistrate to their house with like immediate family and maybe like extended family, and that was it.
Yeah. We looking into that history, I gotta go back and look more at like the North Carolina traditions and whatnot, because at least out in the rural areas back in the day, government was a thing, but not really. And especially back in the day when you had traveling like justices of the peace. I had several ancestors that did that up in Wilkes County back when it was Wilkes, Ashe, Allegheny, and Watauga. Um, and I gotta look at those traditions, because I even late 1800s up in the mountains in North Carolina, it was still the frontier in many ways. And it's not like you just walk on down to the courthouse and tell Big Daddy government that you're married.
Yeah, common law makes a lot more sense when you remember that environment. Like your marriage may very well just be like officiated by your father, who was also the local pastor, and that was it. And then you just let the state know, like, however many years or months or years later, and if you just forgot to, it's like, oh well, I mean, they're still married.
Yeah.
Didn't they sometimes like catch that on like their if I'm recalling correctly, sometimes the census they would
I think
catch it up then too.
the census was at that point in time was really the only standardized, um, well, really any only way to catch that at all. So I guess at the very least they'd know every decade or so if you're married or not. But yeah, I guess before we get into our other topics, we can keep talking guns a little bit more. So I picked up this G3 yesterday, and I've just been infatuated with it ever since. I'm thinking about I'm thinking about turning this into my home defense gun, getting some like those maximum expansion 308 deer rounds that like just balloon up. Getting that and running that out of my 308 battle rifle in my poorly constructed townhome. I'm sure that won't cause any issues at all.
I've always been tempted to try those. I mean, I'm not as much of a gun guy probably as everyone here, but I do have this really nice 357 mag I got a couple years ago. And I've always wanted to try out, like, you can go to these specialty websites that sell deer hunting rounds for the 357 called like Deer Grenade. I'd love to just try it out once. I don't know how effective it actually is, though.
Are there any restrictions against handgun hunting in North Carolina? I don't think there would
Not
be.
for deer. Deer are really overpopulated, and they've basically gotten rid of all the laws. I mean, except for safety, but anything else, like you're allowed to hunt deer with a feeder now too. You can hunt them with pistols. You can hunt them with pretty much anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have not done a regular, I guess, quote unquote, hunt in years at this point, because on the farm we have such a nuisance problem that Well, first of all, if you are the landowner or a direct relative, like a son or brother or whatever of the landowner in North Carolina, um, or the landowner himself, you can for deer at least kill any deer that's damaging your property. So up in the Christmas tree farms, a lot of that looks like these deer attacking young sapling trees, so on and so forth, and there's no restrictions to that. But then also we get what's in this state called depredations warrants, where we get a writ from it's from the sheriff, and I think the game warden signs off on it as well. And it's this piece of paper that says um, you have this amount of time, so typically like a 1 month time frame, and then everyone on this like listed on this piece of paper, all your names and whatnot. And I don't think they give a hard quota, but I think it's like you basically have free reign to kill whatever you want on your land whenever you want. So in years past, when we had really bad years, there'd been nights in July, August where we would like get 4 or 5 of my cousins together, and we would essentially set up like military style ambushes, and we would flush like herds of deer. And this is at like midnight, 1 a.m., and we'd have like 4 or 5 of us up on a hilltop with AR-15s with thermal sights, and we'd get like 70, 80 a night, do that every night for a month. Still don't hardly even cut into the population numbers, but doing that's always fun. And then we, get whatever out of that. So at that point, there's no point in doing regular season hunts. But I tell you, there's nothing more fun than getting in like a busted up farm truck, using it as a technical when you're driving by with thermal sights and just blasting everything, throwing or getting the backhoe and putting them all into a big pile. And yeah.
Yeah, in North Carolina, definitely the key to having a good time on your property is to find some way to get it like some ag recognition. And if you can say it's a farm, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, and I mean it's legit too. Like these things are these animals are causing millions in damage every year, and like you're doing a legit service to the farm, and helping the family business for what it's worth, and it's also just a ton of fun.
Yeah, we live in what you were just talking about, Luke. Like an ag. I can't remember the name of it, but because we're surrounded by farms here, and yeah, you could definitely tell when they're pretty much just quote unquote hunting.
Well, yeah. So, like under state law, the only qualification for being labeled a farm is that you have to do $3,000 a year in revenue, not in profit, just in revenue. So, like for example, I've got a guy renting some land right now, and he's gonna like sell a few cows, towards the end of the year, and like that's enough for me to qualify as a ag stamp because he'll probably make like 3 or 4 grand off it, like in cash flow. So you're good to go. That's all it is. And I think it doesn't matter the size of your farm either. I mean, there's probably some scaling, but not much. It's always really low compared to the acreage. So yeah, if you have like a 100-acre farm and you want to hunt on it year round, just I don't know, like raise some vegetables and sell it at a farmer's market or something, you're good to go.
Yeah, and I mean there's nothing wrong with that either. I support as much agriculture for what it's worth, as best as we can.
No, it really
You know, I,
is, because not only is it good for like you personally, but if you can keep land zoned for agriculture and you can keep communities with their agricultural land, that prevents it from being developed.
yeah, absolutely. We one thing my family's been battling at this point for, I want to say like 3 or 4 years, if not longer. We've got one property that It's been deeded into my family since the like early 1700s, but it's been in my direct line since 1870. After during the Civil War or before the Civil War, a decent amount of my family moved out to Arkansas. Then the Yankee cavalry burned everything we ever had, so they moved back to North Carolina. Ended up buying this piece of land from one of their cousins, and so we essentially had this for going on 150 years. More recently, the wonderful county government has been trying to four-lane a residential road that dead ends a quarter mile down the road. And in doing so, they want to cut down some of our trees that are 200 plus years old and then, take 20, 30 feet from the property for an easement. So I've been battling that for a while and trying to get this recognition that it's called a 100-year farm in the state of North Carolina, where you prove that your family's had a continuous ownership of a property for 100 plus years, for the purposes of agriculture and heritage. And anyways, it's interesting to go through all that process because you see like what the qualifications are and what that gives you. Because essentially, like if I got that or my family member got that, we can essentially tell the county government to just pound sand and they can't do anything because it's in North Carolina, 100-year farms are treated the same way as like historical sites. Um, so yeah, stuff like that is very, very essential to maintaining the heritage of the state.
No, it really is. I think, and thankfully, I think this is a growing recognition on the right that a huge part of American culture, because like culture is notoriously kind of hard to identify sometimes because it's just the air you breathe. But like one big thing that we're all starting to recognize is that the way America has traditionally handled its land is a very big part of our culture. And so it's really important that you take advantage. Like I was kind of joking earlier about how people use it to get, privileges for hunting and stuff, but it is good to get your land certified ag. It's good to get those privileges. It's good to make it as affordable for your family as you possibly can. It's good for you to make it like affordable for other people to use for those traditional recreational purposes. Like it's good that you had all your cousins come and hunt on your land. Like I hope that I can do that for like my family and friends someday. That's a big part of keeping those traditions alive. That's actually a huge thing nationwide right now. Is like a lot of like there's a much smaller population of hunters now compared to what there used to be because a lot of them are baby boomers, and so it's important that anyone who can kind of get into that hobby or allow other people to get into that hobby.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, it is interesting, with the hunting, I guess, phenomenon kind of petering out, not completely dying, but slowing down. That's part of what's causing so much of the nuisance problem with the animal population exploding. And no, not really no, but a lot of young guys just don't want to go out there and fud out, I guess. But you get a bunch of guys together in a technical with thermals and ARs, and they're like, hell yeah, this is awesome. But they don't want to sit in a stand wearing orange for 12 hours.
It's a shame too because we're probably actually in the golden age of hunting as far as like your likelihood of seeing an animal to shoot. Because the reason there's so much overpopulation in part is because I think this started back in the 60s and 70s, but the EPA, well, more specifically the National Department of Wildlife and then the cooperating state departments of wildlife became really, really concerned with conserving game animals. There's been several times where game animals like turkey and deer almost went extinct. In fact, there's a really interesting phenomenon of the American turkey about how the turkey came very close to going extinct. But there were some, wildlife activists who were just very determined to see that not happen, and they were so determined that they basically made the turkey population larger than it's ever been, probably in the history of the entire world. There are now turkeys in Hawaii. There is no way there should be turkeys in Hawaii, but they were just so determined to save them that they really overcompensated. But there's kind of like this phenomenon now where like we're still reaping the benefits of those programs in the sense that there's tons of turkey, there's tons of deer, there's even a decent amount of bears still out there, but there's not as many people to hunt them. So it's actually a great time to get into it because eventually, if people don't start hunting again, the Departments of Wildlife will probably tone some of those efforts down, and you'll see those populations kind of decrease a little bit. So if you ever wanted to do it, now's really the time to like hop in. If you can find someone who will let you hunt on their private land, which is how most people do it now.
Yeah, North Carolina is just, I think it's one of the most hunter friendly states in the nation. For that matter, compare it with Virginia, for instance. Virginia's got some frankly retarded hunting laws where you can't rifle hunt east of the Appalachians except in certain counties, and even then it's under certain standards. Like the county where my parents are at right now, you have to be suspended, I think, 20 feet in the air to use a rifle, or you go to jail. So I guess the game warden has to get the tape measure out to see if you're getting a ticket or
You
not.
can't rifle hunt
Um,
east of the Appalachians?
yeah, in the majority of Virginia, there's a few exceptions, but that's pretty much
I imagine
verboten.
I imagine one of those exceptions is around the Chesapeake, which is kind of a unique hunting zone in its own right.
It depends. If you're hunting like it really depends. That's like the best answer. There's some Indian land out there that you can kind of do whatever on, but for the most part, it's a no go.
Well, I know the Chesapeake rewilded a species of deer that's native to Japan called the Sika, and it's kind of a cool little opportunity up there if you ever get to do it. I've never gotten to go, but it's really cool. They're just a very interesting example of taking wildlife from another continent, but really kind of integrating it to the local ecosystem. But
Interesting.
that's also interesting too, because the Chesapeake, I think, also includes some Maryland people as well. It's kind of a unique zone for that matter. That's a unique part of the state in general. It doesn't quite share some of the same characteristics that you would see elsewhere.
Yeah, that's actually kind of the region I grew up in, and you do see a lot of weird stuff in there. And the state of Virginia is effectively like divided into the Tidewater slash Chesapeake, the I guess center of the state, and the Appalachians. It's really like three states kind of put together. It's an interesting little dynamic they got going on. But there's a lot of peculiarities in the Chesapeake region for sure. There's a lot of protected wildlife, but you can't really do a whole lot out there. Um, they love to write tickets for just about anything. And then there's also a lot of ecological dead zones because I guess back in the day they just pumped whatever they felt like into the Chesapeake Bay mostly throughout the 70s. So you got a lot of weird stuff like that.
Well, just areas where nothing lives at all, like just
Yeah,
brackish.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's some of the only I think it's might be the only like major ecological dead zone in the United States. But on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay, um, during the 60s and 70s in the eastern shore of Virginia, they grew a lot, or they didn't grow. Tyson, I want to say Tyson. Yeah, Tyson had a lot of grow operations out there with chickens, and they would just essentially pump all the chicken excrement into the Chesapeake. And chicken poop is very high in
What is it?
I think it's
Yeah,
nitrogen,
yeah, it's nitrogen.
and you get a certain concentration of that, and you essentially just make the water uninhabitable for anything. And that's what happened.
And nothing ever
And
came back. Like, is it slowly recovering, or is it just completely gone?
it's recovering. I don't know if it'll ever properly recover. Um, but I mean, it's better than it was 50 years ago, for what it's worth.
Yeah, no, chicken manure is no joke. It's very good for your soil, but only in the right doses. If you overdo it, you'll just destroy whatever value's in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have any issues like that in North Carolina. Our like the Inner Banks and whatnot don't really have the same topography as the Chesapeake and Virginia does. So there's not really a lot of like grow operations out there. I think it's all pretty much just row crops, and that's about it.
Well, it wouldn't be a Greene Tavern meeting if we didn't discuss immigration. Because speaking of this, it kind of reminded me that there's another thing that North Carolina grew, which was Blackwater. The company actually operated in Eastern North Carolina, and that takes me to a story we saw. I think it broke a couple days ago about Eric Prince offering to privatize the deportation operations. We'll see what comes of that. Trump has shown some favor to that family before. If I remember correctly, the woman who was the head of the Department of Education under Trump's first term, her name was Betsy DeVos, and I think it's Prince's sister-in-law. It's either a sister-in-law or a sister. So there's clearly some kind of loyalty to that family. I don't know how extensive that is.
Yeah.
I'd love to
Prince
see
is
someone take over.
Prince, if I'm not mistaken, Prince is one of those like old stock like WASP Virginian guys that's really deep into like the quote unquote political class, or more accurately like the actual American gentry. So you get a lot of blood and marriage connections through that. I'm not sure if the like Betsy DeVos stuff. I'm not sure if that's like a loyalty to the family, or if it's like kind of incidental. But
Yeah, she is. That they're brother sister actually.
Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I yeah, that is interesting, but I really think that like the stuff with Prince is more so out of just him being like really good at what he does, more so than like a familial loyalty. I think we all, you see guys on here like joke about Prince a lot, but the dude delivered some results when at the height of Blackwater back in Iraq and wherever.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's easy to forget because, like, I was pretty young when this was going down. A lot of the guys here would probably be not much older or a decent amount younger, but Prince, if I remember correctly, he was essentially occupying Fallujah, wasn't he?
There, I'm sorry.
I think so. Yeah. So like my generation was the one that we saw all the only the bad stuff. Like Blackwater was the bad guy. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like all we saw was like Jon Stewart screaming about how Blackwater and Eric Prince was like continuing the war.
Yeah.
Um,
But most of that is just nonsense. It
yeah,
really is. Like um Blackwater and all the other PMCs, they were really good at going in and doing their contract as the contract stipulated. And so of course the liberal media is gonna be like, oh, mercenary, you know,
Yeah, I mean, sure, they're
because
mercenaries, but like under U.S. law, you can't do that kind of mercenary work without Department of Defense permission.
yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. They're like they can do the job of the military essentially more efficiently than the military can. And whenever the liberal or whatever you want to call it, the deep state apparatus sees that, they don't like that, because government in their eyes is the only thing really in the mind of the liberal. And when you see like a private entity, be it Blackwater or even before Blackwater, if any of you have ever read up on executive outcomes in Africa, you see private entities coming in and doing what governments were not doing very well. A lot of people come in and they're not very happy about that. So I think that's where all the negativity comes in. And then also, that was at the peak of all your bleeding heart liberals opposing the war in Iraq. And I think it's a good thing to have opposed the war, but on different grounds. It's one thing to oppose the of oppose us going in there in the first place, but most of what you see with the opposition to Blackwater is bleeding heart liberals who are like screaming about ROEs and stuff, and not either not understanding or not caring that it's a war, and you kill people. So all that to say that I really think that Prince is legit, and I think he's not really one of our guys per se, but he's in the right mindset.
Well,
And
one thing I admired about Prince is that he did come from one of those really rich families, and he probably could have just had his life on easy mode if he had wanted it. But he, if I remember correctly, joined the military out of just a sense of duty, and then built Blackwater off the back of his own personal experience. Of course, he had his family's money to help him and his connections, that sort of thing. But he wasn't just like someone who wanted to play general.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, he went into the SEALs. He did he walked the walk effectively. And you can respect the man for that. It's it contrast him with a guy like Prigozhin. Um, he was an oligarch who didn't fight and then bought a PMC and then kind of essentially just proverbially waved his dick around. Compare that to Prince. Prince spent, he comes from money, yes, but he spent his time in the military. He did the thing, he walked the walk for what it's worth. Then he started out Blackwater, and they were doing their thing and they were producing results. Um, but yeah, I really think there's promise there, and regardless, if he can do that, deliver on the promises for deportations, we're saving taxpayer money. And you're gonna get a lot of people that are concerned about, well, what about the humanity or the humane treatment? Contractors are known for cutting corners and doing things unethically. Well, who cares? These are illegals. Under US law, illegals do not have rights in the United States. So who cares how we treat them? And for that matter, make an example out of them. Let Blackwater put 1,000 illegals in a boxcar to show the other illegals that they're not messing around, in the hopes that more of them will self deport. You know,
yeah, and I mean, Eric Prince is frankly offering to do it for so cheap. I think he said $25 billion. That is not a lot of money for the scale he's wanting to pull. He's wanting to deport 12 million people in 2 years. If he can do that on a $25 billion budget, I mean, that's a miracle.
yeah, and I think if he does follow through with that, if the government takes him up on that offer, let ICE work side by side, let them operate. You know, if Prince is operating in one city, ICE is operating city over. Let them share resources in that manner so they're not overstretching. And then also, we one thing that we really need to do that I don't think anyone is doing is we need to get some sort of hard data on like the self deportation numbers. I've heard figures ranging from every forceful deportation results in 3 to 4 self deportations, all the way up to 10 to 20. So if we can get some hard math on that, if he's deporting 12 million by the midterms, well, how many more are self-deporting? Is it whatever number that is? We could be looking at, we'll take the low end, 3 to 4. If he deports 12 million, maybe 48 million go on their own accord, and that's huge. That really is huge.
Yeah,
So
that would that would actually make a significant dent. I mean, like that would. I mean, like what are we talking? The population of Texas at that point.
yeah, that would go a long ways. It wouldn't solve the problem, but if we can make that happen, I think we secure at the very least the midterms, and I think we secure 2028, and then we continue the trajectory as is. We're talking about potentially reversing demographic change
Well, I was about to
effectively.
say, if we actually got 48 million to go between self deports and hard deports, I would have to do the math again, but I think that puts us at pre-Obama levels.
Yeah, and that's
Which I mean,
that's
yeah,
by
like yeah, I
2026.
mean going by 26. And I mean, who knows if you'd actually get 48, but even if you got like 25 to 30, I mean, you would be getting to at least like, 2010 levels, which isn't perfect, but that'd be so much more manageable. And again, I mean, it's another example of you win by winning. If you pull something like that off, you have a more friendly voter base who can vote to continue doing that kind of thing. If you don't pull it off, eventually there will be enough that they won't vote against it.
Yeah.
And it happens forever. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing. I mean, this is one thing everyone needs to stay on top of it. Thankfully, it feels like it's been a long time. It's been, 4 weeks? Maybe 4.5 weeks now. So we do have time, but we don't have endless time. So it's good that everyone's kind of staying on top of this, but it still looks positive. Let's see. Is there anything? I'm trying to think if there's any other major news with that. Oh yeah, So what do we think of the idea of replacing the EB5 program with the gold card?
I was actually in an argument with someone about that earlier today. First of all, for framing, a lot of people are seeing the Trump gold card and they're thinking this is some brand new thing. Like, what is Trump doing? A lot of people just seem to not know what the EB5 visa was, and I was one of them for that matter. But we're seeing a lot of people that are hysterical. They're like, "Oh, Trump is selling us out," while creating the visas for rich Chinese and Indians to come in. It's like, sort of, but this is not a novel program. What he's doing is taking an existing visa and raising the barrier to entry by a factor of 5 times over. Is it good? No, probably not. But at the very least, it's making more money for the government. And I mean, 5 million. If you want to attract rich people, probably up at the 10 or 20 million. At the very least, you're getting proper rich people at that point. You can make the argument a slightly less sour, doing something like that.
Well, there's a couple other changes too. Well, you probably know more about this than I do. I don't know really anything about EB5. I was under the impression, based off what Trump was saying about it, that the old rules with EB5 wasn't that you were paying the Treasury, you were dumping whatever the money was, which I guess was $1 million, just into like a sort of broadly defined, domestic investment.
Yeah. So
So it's
so under like the new term, the new Trump gold card, I think is what he's calling it, is significantly more nativist than the EB5 visa, and if anything, we should celebrate that, because previously the EB5 visa, you've got, we'll say we got five H1Bs, Pajit, and Pajit, and they all want to make a company together, and then you get their rich cousin back in India, Pajit, and he's got $1 million. He throws it into that company. He's got the EB5 visa. He's good to go. And then 100 more Pajits come over. Under the new Trump gold card, Pajit has to pay the Treasury 5 million instead of paying, his 200 brothers. And they're
Yes, exactly. That's a huge, huge difference, because this is being reframed as a tariff, essentially. Like, you are paying a tariff directly to the Treasury, and that matters because that really builds on Trump's side. Well, okay, so there's two things. For one, we are most concerned about immigration, but we do have to admit that the debt's a problem. And Trump's right. If you were able to sell, like, what was it, 1 million of those cards, well, that sucks, but that's about what we get anyway. As far as people coming in, he's like, if we made them all pay $5 million, like, that'd be $5 trillion. That'd be enough to fund the government for a year. So you can either like make significant progress on the debt, or you can basically just stop taxing your citizens completely. Now, is that ideal? No. Ideally, it's not for sale. But I mean, it's such a better deal than EB5. It's certainly an improvement, even if it's not perfect. And the other thing too is it really calls the bluff, sort of like what you were saying on high value immigrants. Like, hey, like, you're a high value immigrant, man. Like, prove it. Like, if you're that high value, like, $5 million shouldn't be that hard for you.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that our policy, whether we like it or not, is going to be incrementalist, and it's better to take steps in the right direction than to essentially do what the abortion abolitionists do and say, well, we want it now, we want everything or nothing, because that gets
Which
you
means you
nowhere,
get. No, I agree. Abolitionism, again, it's laudable as an ideal. I mean, we want no abortion. We also want, I wouldn't say maybe no immigration, but like very, very, very restricted and managed. Like nothing even close to what we have now. We want all these things right this second. But the thing is, Trump couldn't even do it right this second if he wanted to. This is what the first term taught us. Like if you don't play the game, you'll just get crushed. Like Trump tried to do a bunch of stuff in the first term. Like that famous story where Trump tried to leave Syria and the generals just didn't do it. Like they lied to him and said they were, and they just didn't. Well, like that's a huge problem. Like, you can blame Trump all you want, but like Trump told them to leave and they just said no. Now, I think he's learned his lesson. You have to actually staff these departments with loyalists. You have to win popular mandates so that you can do these things. But like Trump can't walk into office, sign executive orders saying like, "Hey, we're deporting like every immigrant, and also we're not letting any new immigrants in, and also we're gonna like seize their assets." Like, we want that kind of stuff, but like, it's not gonna happen. But incrementalism makes sure that stuff actually sticks, especially if you can get Congress to codify it into law.
I guess we can go a little bit more of the I guess depressing humorous side. Did you see the all these NSA and CIA trainee chat rooms that the FBI is apparently uncovering?
Yeah. It's like, it's like the grossest possible. I mean, like gross in the sense of like it's the most. Like if you asked like a 12-year-old, like a 12-year-old MAGA kid or kid with MAGA parents, and it was like, describe what you think like these evil, like James Bond tier government agents do. Like even he wouldn't be able to come up with something this ham-fisted. I mean, it's incredible, really. I mean, we knew it was bad, but like the fact that, I mean, if you tried to do anything like this in a private company, I mean, you get canned right away. But if you're a high level government official in the intelligence agency, you can just do this stuff. And apparently with zero repercussions. I mean, I guess there's some repercussions now, finally. But I mean, the fact that these people were just more or less running the country the last 4 years is insane.
Yeah, and it's interesting because alongside that, it's possible. I don't know if there's any substantiation to it, but you're getting rumors of like a inter-service or interagency conflict going on. Um, hearing reports of different FBI raids on NSA CIA agents, and then FBI's catching like Army and whatever other branch generals shredding files. So maybe Cash Patel is legit, and he's putting in some work. If we can get one agency on our side, if that's the FBI under Patel, and use that to rein in NSA, DIA, CIA, so on and so forth, then I think that's another win that we should be celebrating.
You know what's?
Yeah, Cash.
Oh, sorry, man.
No, you're good.
You know what's interesting is I remember a lot of people like several months ago. It was during campaign season, but it was before prime election time. Trump announced how he wanted to build a new FBI building. and there were a lot of people that were obviously, well, you got to get rid of the FBI, abolish the FBI, and this and that. And it was, to me, it was an interesting move because one, it signaled to me that one, if he got reelected and he was able to get his guy, one, they would do the old school business thing of opening up a new building and then just basically either hiring on new people, or the faction of, like, maybe there is a faction or a split like within the FBI that that was somewhat pro-Trump, and then the rest was obviously what we see with a lot of the different regime, right? But I was curious about that. Like, that made me actually start wondering of what is the split like within the FBI, because I don't think it's all anti-Trump. I do think that there's possibly like a faction that is possibly pro-Trump, and that was a signal to, like, if you remain loyal to me or if you're on my side, you're going to be in this new building. And maybe they leave the old building and they leave that particular part of the FBI there, and maybe they close that building and anyone that's left in that building are part of the cuts. I don't know. It was just something that when I saw during his campaign, and he was talking about opening up a brand new FBI building, that was something that kind of that struck with me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the idea that DC maybe just needs to be physically broken up. I think this has already happened with is it the Bureau of Land Management? I think they moved to Colorado, maybe in the Denver area. There's been discussion on doing that with essentially every department. So maybe moving them to the areas that's closest to their actual operations. So I don't know, maybe Department of Energy goes to maybe
put like the
either to where
DOE
like
over in like the Tennessee Valley, and stuff like the EPA, put that out west, and so on and so forth.
just so they're like physically separated, because like even with the internet, there's something about physical proximity that's kind of builds a fortress, and if you can physically separate them, that kind of creates more the impression like, hey, like our job is to actually serve the interior. That's another kind of mindset. I remember reading a few years ago there were some people who were saying that major news outlets would do good to move their corporate headquarters to like Kansas or something, so that you're forced to remind yourself that you actually are primarily meant to serve these people. Now, they never did that, and they've suffered for it, I think, but moving agencies out there could be a big deal.
Definitely. And if we see that, it'd be interesting to see that mirrored on the state level in some of these larger states. Um, for instance, in I want to say, give an example of like Texas, or even more local in North Carolina. If we could get like fisheries, for instance, take fisheries out of Raleigh and go put it in like New Bern or something, or stuff like that. Stop stop centralizing the capitals in the way that we're doing right now. Um, it's good for obviously spreading the agencies out, but it's also like militarily, strategically, whatever. It's a sound move. Decentralizing your capital. Um, for what it's worth, South Africa actually kind of does that, and granted, nothing works well in their government, but they have an interesting idea where they have essentially three capitals. And they spread their executive, judiciary, and legislative branches between them. So I forget which one is where, but they've got one branch in Cape Town, one in Johannesburg, and the other one in Pretoria. So maybe it's something to emulate in the U.S. and in spreading different agencies out to where they should be.
Yeah, but if we move out all the agencies, how are the gay bars in DC can get any business?
Yeah, I think James O'Keefe will his project will fall apart.
You mean James? Man, I was on a job board the other day, and I stumbled onto into a listing for O'Keefe's agency, and I was like, no way, man.
Okay, Luke.
I
For
can't do
this
it.
one, we need you to put the leather on.
You,
No, I mean,
you don't want that sweet gay honey trap money, man.
yeah, no. The fact they even advertise jobs is insane to me. Like, what do they? I mean, like, what do people think they would do working for that
I thought
guy?
I'd be an analyst. Why am I doing this?
Also, apparently, like, you know, like in the old comics, Superman would put on his glasses and nobody recognized him, and everyone thought that was stupid. I mean, James O'Keefe can do that, I guess. Like, I don't know how everybody in DC, and I mean probably everybody in DC, sadly, doesn't know who James O'Keefe is at this point. But I mean, he just keeps. Actually, no. The funniest part about O'Keefe though is he never finds anything interesting. Like he'll honey trap some agent, and the big takeaway is like this agent said that like Democrats want gun control, and that's the big. And I mean, you didn't really need to, honey trap a NSA agent to know that, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we see that happening. Totally unrelated, kind of changing the subject a little bit. This is something I just stumbled upon. I guess I wasn't aware of this beforehand, but are y'all familiar with the ocean liner USS United States?
I am not.
So, sorry, the SS United States was it was a liner, I believe, from the 50s, maybe the 60s. Um, it was kind of like a attempt to have like one last hurrah for the ocean liner, and it was supposed to symbolize American excellence and whatnot. Set in dry dock for long time, and there were all these intentions and plans of revitalizing it and having some sort of a American ocean liner. It's similar enough to the British have. I think they call it the Queen Elizabeth ocean liner. But anyways, it all kind of fell by the wayside, and today apparently the SS United States has been it's under tow going from wherever it was home ported out to be a artificial reef off the coast of, I believe, Florida. So it's just a piece of history that just just rotted essentially in a dock for however many years now, just being discarded essentially for a reef. It's just an interesting piece.
Maybe they can save it for the nation's 250th anniversary.
No, it's getting sunk like today, unfortunately.
Oh well.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know how often that happens? I've never heard of that happening before. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
Like how often ships get sunk for being like reefs.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, so
So
that's
that's
something new
actually
for me.
it's fairly common nowadays. One of the like making artificial reefs, a lot of that came out of like it was one of the few things the EPA did right, but since there's been a lot of coral retreat and whatnot, it's become more common in recent years to use whatever materials. So a lot of times like they'll throw old cars in the ocean, yeah, stripping all the hazardous stuff out, of course, ships and whatnot. Trying to think. Over in Charleston, South Carolina, they have a kind of like a naval park where they have the USS Yorktown, the aircraft carrier. They have a destroyer I don't remember the name of, and then they used to have a submarine there. It was a World War II submarine that got modernized for the Cold War. and they had that there. I had the chance to go on it actually, but the hull had degraded so much that it was no longer seaworthy, or not seaworthy, but just dock worthy, I guess. And what they ended up doing is they took it out into Charleston Bay and they sunk it for a reef. And what that does is it I guess it gives like an attachment point for coral and whatnot, and then also like a shelter for schools of fish and whatnot, creating kind of an ecosystem. It's a pretty neat idea, and I think a lot of or at least some of the pre-nuclear aircraft carriers of ours ended up, getting sunk like that. I can't think of any examples particularly, but it's a better fate than the breaker yard, I guess.
Well, that's actually what you're talking about. Ships that were sunk prior to like nuclear proliferation and testing. Weren't most of those eventually dug back up for like really precise manufacturing purposes?
Yeah. So it's called pre I forget the exact term, but essentially all steel that has been manufactured or created or whatever after the detonation of the nuclear bombs, um, like the nuclear bomb at Trinity in July of 45, has a certain set of properties that all the steel made before that point did not. So it's highly valuable to have that steel. So there's like a huge there's like a black market salvage essentially operation going on throughout the world, but mostly I believe most of that is in Indonesia, because there's tons and tons of Japanese, American, Australian, and British vessels that are sunk in and around Indonesia and the Philippines from the Second World War. So you get a lot of like illegal scavenging or salvaging operations to get that pre-atomic steel, and I guess somehow or another it proliferates back to the U.S. and um, China and wherever else for. I think it's mostly for like medical instruments and then like highly precise measuring tools. But a lot of ships are um, they're not national parks, but like graveyards. I don't know what the exact term is for it, but like the debris field of the ship is considered like a graveyard effectively, and you're not allowed to mess with it at all. So for instance, off the coast of North Carolina, the USS Monitor, the Mariners Museum in Virginia salvaged the turret and then some of the artillery from it. But I believe the ship itself is considered like a memorial slash graveyard, and you're not allowed to dive it anymore. And then there's some other examples of other vessels like that. I think a few German U-boats and so on and so forth. But yeah. What next? Luke, you got anything else?
No, of all of our important topics, I think that's probably about it.
All right. Very good then. You want to close this out in prayer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for our time together as a society. We thank you for the opportunity to discuss the news and for the other work that we're doing. We pray that you will bless our efforts and bless even our more casual time together like this. And pray that we'll all have a good rest of the week. And that's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Good job. All right. Thank y'all for coming out. Have a great one now.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen.